Entitled Karen demanded Arnold leave the public gym. Then the owner arrived and told her the truth. The rhythmic clang of weights echoed through the cavernous space of Iron Temple Gym, a symphony of dedication and effort. The air, thick with the metallic tang of iron and the faint, clean scent of disinfectant, hummed with the low thrum of treadmills and the focused grunts of lifters. Sunlight, filtered through the high industrial windows, cast long, shifting shadows across the polished concrete floor, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. In a corner, amidst a formidable array of barbells and dumbbells, a figure of immense proportions moved with practiced grace. His movements were fluid, powerful, each rep a testament to decades of disciplined strength. He wore a simple gray t-shirt, stretched taut across a chest that seemed carved from granite, and dark athletic shorts. His face, etched with the lines of time and effort, was a mask of concentration. His breathing deep and controlled. The focused atmosphere was abruptly shattered by a shrill, indignant voice. "Excuse me, do you mind?" A woman, impeccably dressed in designer athleisure wear that looked more suited for a coffee shop than a gym, stood hands on hips, glaring directly at the man. Her face, framed by a perfectly coiffed blonde bob, was contorted in an expression of pure annoyance. "I've been waiting for that bench for ages. Some of us actually have a schedule to keep, you know?" She gestured dramatically at the empty bench next to the man, though he was clearly still in the middle of his set. Her voice, loud and piercing, drew the attention of several nearby gym-goers, who paused their workouts, casting curious glances. The man, mid-set on a heavy incline press, slowly lowered the barbell back onto the rack with a soft, controlled thud. He turned his head, his brow furrowed slightly, his gaze meeting the woman's. His expression was one of mild confusion, not anger. "I am sorry," he rumbled, his voice deep and accented. "I did not realize you were waiting for this bench. I am almost finished." He gestured to the 2 remaining sets he had left on his workout sheet. The woman, however, was not appeased. "Almost finished? That's what they all say," she huffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. "You've been hogging it for at least 20 minutes. And honestly, with those grunts, you're disturbing everyone's peace. This is a public gym, not your personal grunting booth." She crossed her arms, tapping her foot impatiently. A few people snickered, while others looked away, uncomfortable with the escalating scene. The air grew thick with the cloying scent of her expensive perfume, clashing with the honest sweat of the gym. "I am merely finishing my workout," the man replied, his tone still calm, though a hint of weariness entered his voice. He picked up a dumbbell, preparing for his next set. "There are many other benches available." He gestured vaguely to other parts of the gym. "No, there aren't," she snapped, her voice rising in pitch. "Not good ones, and I shouldn't have to wait for anyone, especially not some old muscle man who thinks he owns the place." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a stage whisper, though still loud enough for everyone to hear. "Honestly, you're probably just trying to show off. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Have you ever encountered someone this entitled at the gym?" The woman, whose name was Karen, had no idea the kind of legend she was speaking to, nor the history embedded in the very walls of this gym. And if you're wondering what happens next, if this icon of strength will finally lose his patience, or if someone will step in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel right now. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you won't want to miss the shocking truth that's about to be revealed. A truth that will leave Karen absolutely speechless. Karen continued her tirade, oblivious to the growing discomfort of the onlookers and the subtle shift in the man's demeanor. "You know what? I'm going to report you. This is unacceptable behavior. You're taking up too much space, making too much noise, and frankly, you're intimidating. People like you shouldn't be allowed to monopolize equipment in a public facility." She pulled out her phone, holding it up as if to record him, though her finger hovered over the screen. The man, however, simply set down the dumbbell he had picked up. He slowly straightened to his full imposing height, His eyes, which had been mild, now held a glint of something unyielding. He didn't speak, but his silence, his sheer presence, began to exert a powerful pressure. The first subtle sign that Karen had made a grave miscalculation wasn't a word or a gesture from the man, but the sudden, almost reverent hush that fell over the gym. The clanging of weights seemed to soften, the hum of machines to recede. People who had been casually watching now stared intently, their faces a mixture of disbelief and anticipation. A young man, barely out of his teens, dropped a barbell with a clatter, his eyes wide as he recognized the man. He nudged his friend, whispering frantically, "Dude, is that?" Karen, however, was too caught up in her own indignation to notice the shift in atmosphere. "Are you going to move? Or do I need to call the manager?" she demanded, her voice still sharp, but with a slight tremor of uncertainty creeping in. The man finally spoke, his voice still calm but with an underlying steel that was impossible to ignore. "You wish to speak to the manager?" he asked, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. "Very well." He then turned his head slightly, his gaze sweeping across the gym, and then, with a deliberate, almost theatrical motion, he extended his arm, pointing directly at a large, framed photograph hanging prominently on the wall, above the reception desk. The photograph, slightly faded with age, depicted a younger version of the man, muscles rippling, holding a gleaming trophy aloft, a triumphant smile on his face. Below the photo, a brass plaque read, "Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Olympia, founder of Iron Temple Gym." The revelation hit Karen like a physical blow. Her jaw dropped, her eyes darting from the man's face to the photograph, then back again. The color drained from her face, leaving it a ghostly white. The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, a mix of gasps and hushed exclamations. "Oh my God," someone whispered. "It's him." Karen's phone, which she had been holding aloft, slowly lowered, her hand trembling. The man, Arnold Schwarzenegger, simply stood there, his gaze unwavering, allowing the truth to sink in. Karen stammered, You're the Arnold Schwarzenegger? The owner?" Her voice was barely a whisper, all the earlier bravado completely gone, replaced by utter mortification. Arnold gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Indeed," he replied, his voice now carrying a hint of amusement. "And this," he gestured around the gym, "is my temple, my gym." He then picked up the dumbbell he had set down earlier, his massive hand dwarfing the weight. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have 2 more sets to finish." The gym-goers, who had been holding their breath, collectively exhaled. A few chuckled, others openly grinned. Karen, meanwhile, looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her face was a kaleidoscope of embarrassment, regret, and dawning horror. Arnold, without another word, smoothly resumed his workout, the dumbbell moving with powerful precision. Each rep was a silent, undeniable demonstration of his enduring strength and his rightful place in this space. Karen, utterly humiliated, took a hesitant step back, then another. She glanced around, meeting the amused, sometimes pitying, gazes of the other gym members. Her perfectly coiffed hair suddenly seemed disheveled, her expensive athleisure wear utterly out of place. She mumbled something inaudible, a desperate attempt to regain some dignity, but it was futile. The air once thick with her indignation was now heavy with her shame. Arnold, meanwhile, continued his workout, seemingly oblivious to Karen's distress. His focus was absolute, his breathing deep and rhythmic. The clang of the dumbbell against the rack was the only sound that mattered. It was a powerful display of control, not just over the weights, but over the entire situation. He didn't need to shout, didn't need to argue. His presence, his identity, and his actions spoke volumes. Karen, unable to bear the weight of the stairs any longer, turned on her heel and practically fled the gym, her expensive sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. She didn't even bother to grab her water bottle from the counter. The door hissed shut behind her, leaving a sudden, almost palpable sense of relief in the air. A few people clapped softly, a spontaneous quiet applause for Arnold. Arnold finally finished his last set, carefully racking the dumbbell. He wiped his brow with a towel, a faint smile playing on his lips. He looked around the gym, meeting the eyes of the other members, and gave a small, knowing nod. It was a moment of shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the absurdity that had just unfolded. A young man, the one who had dropped his barbell earlier, approached Arnold cautiously. "Mr. Schwarzenegger," he began, his voice filled with awe. "That was incredible. I can't believe she didn't know who you were." Arnold chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "It happens more often than you think," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Some people are too busy looking at their phones to see what is right in front of them." The main confrontation, though brief, was a masterclass in quiet authority. Arnold didn't need to raise his voice or resort to aggression. His calm demeanor, contrasted with Karen's escalating hysteria, highlighted his control. When she demanded he leave, he simply pointed to the truth, a truth that was literally plastered on the wall. His technique wasn't physical force, but the undeniable weight of his identity and his ownership of the space. Karen's desperation grew with each passing second, her attempts to assert dominance crumbling under the weight of Arnold's unwavering calm. Her initial provocations were met with polite confusion, then a quiet, almost amused patience. The crowd's reactions shifted from mild curiosity to outright shock, and then to a collective sense of satisfaction as Karen's entitlement backfired spectacularly. Arnold's control was evident in his continued focus on his workout, even as Karen ranted. He demonstrated that her words held no power over him, that his purpose in the gym was far greater than her petty demands. His superiority wasn't just physical, it was a superiority of character, of purpose, against her chaos and self-importance. The climax of the confrontation wasn't a shouted argument, but the quiet, devastating reveal of the photograph. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated truth that instantly shattered Karen's illusion of authority. The silence that followed was more impactful than any explosion, allowing the full weight of her error to sink in. Arnold then offered a small, almost philosophical observation to the young man who had approached him. "Many people come to the gym to build muscle," he said, flexing his biceps slightly. "But the real strength you build here is discipline, respect, and humility. Without those, the muscles mean nothing." The young man nodded, absorbing the wisdom. The complete defeat of Karen was absolute. She wasn't just asked to leave. She fled in self-imposed exile, her entitlement utterly shattered. The change in crowd perception was immediate and profound. The gym-goers, initially hesitant to get involved, now felt a renewed sense of camaraderie and respect for their founder. A small, elderly woman, who had been diligently working on a stationary bike, slowly pedaled over to Arnold. Her face, wrinkled with age, held a warm smile. "Thank you, Arnold," she said softly, her voice raspy. "Some people just need a reminder of where they are and who built this place for all of us." Arnold smiled back, a genuine, heartfelt expression. "It is my pleasure, Maria," he replied. "This gym is for everyone who respects it." Arnold then walked towards the exit, a towel slung over his shoulder, his presence still commanding, but now radiating a sense of quiet satisfaction. He paused at the door, looking back at the bustling gym, the sounds of weights and effort once again filling the air. He had defended his temple, not with aggression, but with truth and dignity. As he stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, the moral of the story was clear, echoing in the minds of everyone who had witnessed the scene. Respect isn't taken by force, it's earned by dedication and humility. Silent doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes the quietest person carries the greatest power, a power that comes from knowing who you are and standing firm in your truth.